What started as a small spot fire at Boolaroo quickly fanned into a major blaze, threatening houses at the bottom end of First Street and the ambulance station. With all possible fire brigade units concentrated in the Taralba area, residents used garden hoses to water down their property, but they were fighting a losing battle. At times the smoke became so thick residents could not see what they were contending with. When brigades arrived, they too were able to do little. Nature had taken control and it was not letting go. Residents of First Street were evacuated. Shop owners grabbed what they could, fleeing the area. As the fire closed in, the main road was blocked to traffic. The choking, thick black smoke a hazard to officers working at the front of the blaze. 2 volunteers were overcome by smoke and were treated on the scene by ambulance officers. What concerned brigade officers, though, was the speed at which the blaze was travelling. Employees of the nearby Pasminco metal sulphide plant were stationed around the site as the fire came precariously close to the plant. Late this afternoon, the fire had crossed the road and the plant was on full alert. Up the road at the Lake Macquarie Council chambers, a state of emergency had been declared. A central command post has been set up at the chambers to oversee the situation. The Army is on standby and could be called in at any moment. With the fire fronts continually changing, brigade officers say the situation is not under control and units are just fighting whatever they come across. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
The Commuters Association cites the Hunter's 15-year-old red rattlers as symbolic of the outdated services in local transport. Spokesman Bob Bell says CityRail's administration is out of touch and he says the wrong options are being taken in funding decisions. Last night, the Commuters Association held its first meeting calling for help to lobby politicians. But while the group says the community is worried, less than 20 people turned up to lend their support.
Late this afternoon, fire tore through the just completed Tingara Centre for Blind Children at Tingara Heights. The $2.5 million complex has been extensively damaged. The centre was less than 2 weeks away from being officially opened. Property in the path of the flames was destroyed, including a garden shed and this truck. Firefighters were helpless in stopping the inferno, which jumped the Pacific Highway and raced towards Belmont North.
The Honeysuckle project covers 50 hectares of underutilised government land used in the past for rail and port-related uses. It confirms the termination of the rail line at the Civic Station, freeing up waterfront land and extending the foreshore 3 kilometres around to the end of Hannell Street. Features of the concept master plan include reuse of heritage railway buildings, possibly for markets and specialty retailing, entertainment facilities, a hotel and convention centre. It will also include medium and high-density housing. The plan has been formulated by the state government, private sector, the city council and community and business groups. It'll be on display for 2 months and submissions are invited from the public. The plan is expected to be finalised by early next year and financial assistance is expected to be sought from the federal government's Better Cities scheme.
The trouble began just before noon when freshening northeasterly winds sparked the flames. The blaze spread quickly towards the Pioneer Ridge housing estate. Firefighters began backburning in a bid to stop the flames before they reached the residential area.
Our main concern is at this stage that the wind that's moving the way it is, our flanks are becoming fronts with very little warning, and being able to deploy tankers quickly when we're protecting homes makes it a little difficult.
5 units are currently fighting the blaze, and with strong swirling winds still fanning the flames, there's no rest in sight.
They've had no break since Wednesday, or very little break. However, they seem to regain sufficient stamina to protect properties, and I think that's what volunteers are all about, not only survival but looking after their townships.
Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Trade union officials estimate that about 100,000 workers across the Hunter will walk off the job tomorrow. Such is the level of concern about the Greiner government's proposed industrial legislation. Secretary of Newcastle's Trades Hall, Peter Barrack, says if the bill is passed, workers will be stripped of the protection currently offered by trade unions and the Industrial Commission.
When workers are denied the fundamental right to withdraw their labour, at the threat of $10,000 fine, and then $1,000 for every day after, and or 6 months jail. We don't see that as progress in terms of industrial relations.
Nurses and allied health workers will strike for the second time in just over a week, leaving patients in the care of a skeleton staff and volunteers. Ambulance officers will restrict their work to emergencies. There will be no funerals or cremations tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Teachers' Federation expects strong support from its members. The Department of School Education has advised parents to check with their local schools about the anticipated staffing levels before deciding whether to send their children. The New South Wales branch of the Australian Journalists Association also voted to strike tomorrow. Peter Barrack believes the proposed bill has united the union movement.
Virtually all unions, I understand, with the possible exception of the banking industry, that all unions have made a commitment to this particular strike.
Industries such as BHP will be affected by the strike. Most of the plant will be closed except for essential areas such as the blast furnaces and coke ovens, which need to be operated 24 hours a day. As well as heavy industry, building sites are expected to come to a standstill. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The proportion of workers striking in the Hunter today paralleled those elsewhere in the state. The bulk of strikers are employed by unionised organisations such as BHP, Gunninan, National Textiles and tube makers. A Chamber of Manufacturers survey says that in 60% of unionised companies, more than half their employees did not turn up.
Not much you can do about it. The union says go out, we go out. That's about it.
Premier Greiner said he was disturbed by reports of people being intimidated by union officials, but others claimed they were making their own stand.
We're happy to join today's strike, yes.
This State Railways employee agreed.
Should have had it long ago. I think we let it go a bit late.
The Chamber of Manufacturers survey, however, also showed that employees not belonging to a union almost unanimously rejected the strike and turned up for work. And it just depended on which industry one worked for, whether turning up for work or not was worthwhile. Taxi drivers, for example, had the worst day in years, while shops in centres such as Charlestown Square reported a 20% increase in customers. For those self-employed, it was business as usual.
Because I can't afford to have time off.
The Chamber of Manufacturers says that no one can really afford the cost of this strike.
It'll be bad for the economy because each worker will lose, on average, about $60, and we estimate that there would be around about 100,000 people that will go on strike here in the Hunter region. About $6.5 million will be lost to the Hunter's economy. I think the people that are going to hurt is going to be the community. It's going to be the employers, employees, and the community in general through money not circulating in the economy.
After losing their first match to Adelaide City, the Breakers have won successive matches against South Melbourne and Preston, becoming the first team to beat Preston at Connor Reserve for 18 months. Tomorrow night against Sydney Croatia, the Breakers will start favourites, but cannot underestimate the visitors.
The game against Croatia is a different kettle of fish. They've not got a point, as you suggest, but they're a very good side and some quality players. And if we start to think a little bit about what we've done and we need to coast from here, we're going to get punished. But I think all in all, we'll make sure that there's no punishment this Friday.
Ralph Mayer spent most of last weekend's encounter in a daze after suffering concussion, and he'll be rested.
Ralph the person is more important to me than Ralph the soccer player. And Ralph, although I think he understood, obviously wanted to be on the park, but I'm not prepared to risk anybody, let alone how many injuries I've got. And he's one that I'm sitting on the sidelines to have a rest and have a look.
More good news for the Breakers today with the signing of a major sponsorship. The ground will now be known as Mitre 10 Stadium, and the six-figure sum for the 5-year deal is another boost to the coffers.
Very excited about it actually, and when we were offered the opportunity to take it up, we thought about it long and hard, and we thought, well, we should get involved with what we believe is going to be a very strong local team, and Mitre 10's a very strong local team, so we thought the two should go hand in hand.
The announcement continues the rapid rise of the Breakers.
It's getting better all the time, Mike, but still a long way to go. But providing we keep the crowds coming and play the football we're playing, I think we'll be very happy by the end of the season.
Students from the Department of Design began work on this poster last year. Lecturer in illustration Andrew Atkins specialises in entomology and was sought by the editors of Australian Geographic to undertake the full-size colour poster. It features around 58 butterflies which are found across Australia, each painstakingly illustrated by university students.
All that hard work was definitely worth the effort, and people generally, from those who have seen it so far, have given us very favourable response. And in fact, we've had all sorts of inquiries about our postgraduate course from all over the country, from people that have now seen that article.
Before they could begin the project, however, most of the live specimens had to be caught. The drawings are also a valuable help to scientists studying Australian species.
It assists science as well as develops the creativity and the skills of the art students, and we see it as an important connection between art and science.
Today's leg of the Classic was one of the toughest, 173 kilometres, but very little time to admire the scenery of the Lakes Way. Early on, splinter groups made attacks, but on each occasion, the marauding pack was able to pick them up with ease. And then the break of the decade, with Bozano and Nadabenko setting out to rip the field apart. The pack was content for a while to let the pair head off on their own, unaware of the tactics that Bozano and Nadabenko had in mind. Their lead increased to 3 minutes, then 5. Along the way, Bozano winning the first King of the Mountain stage, and his Russian ally the second, just before they turned onto the highway at Bulahdelah. With the breakaway pair almost 9 minutes in front, the bunch was stung into action over the final 60 kilometres, and they gradually started to peg back the leaders. As they hit Newcastle, Nadabenko and Bozano had 3 laps of a 3.7k circuit to travel to complete their amazing ride. The pack loomed into view, but the pair had achieved the near impossible, hanging on for victory with Nadabenko crossing just ahead of Bozano. Germany's Thomas Liesch retains the yellow jersey, but only 27 seconds in front of Kiwi Richard Reid.
Unable to find a boat which he liked, Don Trappel set about building this catamaran from the keel up. Designed by a New Zealander, the twin-hulled vessel was given a launching fit for the Britannia, although there was the odd moment when all didn't go according to plan. With the boat in the water and everything operating as it should, there were celebrations all around, although the captain got more than he bargained for.
There were sighs of relief at Waratah Technology High School with round one of the HSC battle over.
Oh, it wasn't bad.
But it was a lot easier than we expected.
Quietly confident. Yeah, I'd say I'm going to do okay, I suppose, yeah.
4,582 students are sitting for the HSC in the Hunter, an increase of 200 on last year and a record for the 25 years of the exam. Teachers say the 3 English papers today were fair with no surprises.
If they'd studied for the work, they would have covered everything.
There are 60 subjects covered in the HSC, including new studies like small business and travel agency practice. One student in the Hunter is being examined on Mandarin. Only 13 are sitting for Latin. Tomorrow is the second stage of the English papers. Peter Ryan, NBN News. Six students qualified in a 10-week Curry-Link course based at Newcastle University, a program designed to break down the barriers between Aborigines and the education system. The students studied communication and motivation skills and will now take their new talents out to the community. It won't be an easy job. Only 20% of Aboriginal pupils go through to the HSC, compared to well over 50% of white Australians.
Two water pipes burst under City Road, one right in the middle of the Alice Street intersection. Authorities were forced to close the road for most of the day as workmen repaired the damage. Police redirected city-bound traffic through Scenic Drive, but cars were still backed up for kilometres. The Water Board said the steel pipes were badly corroded and were probably broken by the weight of a heavy vehicle. After about 25,000 litres of water went down the drain, the road was reopened at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
The parents of the abducted infant were at John Hunter Hospital this afternoon to be reunited with Robert Fawcett Williams, who disappeared from their home in Richmond last Thursday.
He's fine now, thank God. That's what we're just glad about, that he's fine and he's coming home soon.
Mrs. Fawcett left the infant in the care of a babysitter. A 14-year-old girl and the missing child were recognised when they went to the Hunter Mission in Mayfield seeking shelter last night. Director David Hogg says he recognised the infant from a photograph released by police on television.
As I rang the number of Windsor detectives, told them what had happened today at our community centre, and gave the name of the girl, the name that she gave us, and they indicated to me that that was a name that she uses sometimes, and they said that's who we're looking for.
He advised the teenage girl to take the baby to John Hunter Hospital, where police were waiting to question her. She was later charged with abduction and appeared in Warramai Children's Court this morning, where the court heard that she was a ward of the state and an habitual runaway. The girl has told police she was concerned for the infant's welfare. When Magistrate Warren Cook indicated he would refuse bail, the girl became agitated, making a number of outbursts. Police told the Children's Court that reports of cigarette burns on the infant's body couldn't be verified until a doctor's report had been completed. The alleged teenage abductor will remain in custody until a further court appearance at Penrith Children's Court in 2 weeks. Tom Hilston, NBN News.